up. That's right, I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Knicks family. Welcome to Lunchtime Live, the New York Knicks recap and reaction show. I'm your host, Stephanie, a.k.a. Queen, joined by Jeff Clafter from the Happily Ever Clafter Daily Sports Blog. The Knicks beat Toronto last night in Toronto. What was that, 119-92, if I'm not mistaken? Down 2 rotation players on the road, second game of a back-to-back. Really impressive win, in my opinion. The Knicks are now back to second in the Eastern Conference, pretty much tied with Boston percentage points-wise. They just looked more, well, I'm not going to say they look more like themselves. They look different, obviously, and we'll get into that. Knicks fans, I was just telling Jeff, I clicked on some post-game show, and the first thing the host said was, the Knicks don't need Giannis. I'm like, relax. It's one game. We seem to be rounding into shape. It was an impressive win. But I think in terms of what the Knicks need has to be based on something more than just one win. But it was impressive. Jeff, how are you? Good to see you. And yeah, just your initial thoughts before we dive in.
Wow, what an impressive second half performance. We still haven't played 4 quarters of good basketball, but even early in the season when we were playing well, that was the case. But what strikes me is this is the 3rd time in 4 games where we've allowed a team under 100 points. We've limited a team to under 100 points. And the first 2 were the Kings and the Nets. So it's like, yeah, so what? But when you do that against this Raptors team that can beat you 1,000 different ways and has been one of the hottest teams in the NBA, they were tied with Cleveland as far as longest winning streak coming into that game, and they had extra rest and for the Knicks to really just put the clamps down in the second half and say, okay, you can play small ball if you want to. We're just going to get every rebound and just dominate and not look back. To me, that's an encouraging sign. But what it all comes down to is Wingstop elevated their play in a way that we haven't really seen from all 3 of them at the same time, any rate. Probably all season. I mean, Brunson was under the weather, and it was kind of obvious from his performance. It wasn't a vintage Jalen game by any stretch of the imagination. Towns didn't score the ball, but he collected every single rebound, right? So you had that, but the triumvirate of Hart, Bridges, and Anunoby were the guys who really did it for us in this game, and kudos to them and the defense against a Raptors team that has a lot of ways that they can score on you and beat you.
Yeah, for sure. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with the McHale storm, because Bridges was awesome last night. Like it's funny because Schwenny over at the Strickland said he mentioned early on in the game, he said, it's been 14 minutes and Bridges doesn't even have a shot. And then, we were down 10 and he made 3 baskets in a row that cut the lead to 6. And then, obviously we were down 4 at half, but then I think he went he had 5 consecutive baskets to close the 3rd quarter, and turn a close game into an 82-70 Knick lead by the end of the 3rd quarter. And he's certainly not the only star of the game last night, but I thought his ability to score and he really took over the game offensively for me. And I thought that was so critical. And I thought his comments after the game were fascinating. Like the entitlement comment. Did you hear that?
I heard him, but quite frankly, I didn't quite understand what he was saying. I heard him. I didn't quite get it though.
And maybe I think it's an ego thing. Like you saying, well, I was just saying, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And I'm, because I'm just good enough to get by on my talent instead of, okay, I need to be receptive to what the coach is playing. I have them tuned out. I need to get back to playing team ball and focusing on what Mike Brown wants us to do. And I don't know if that's what the cause is, but the last 2 games he's been incredible shooting the ball. I mean, he really has had 2 of his best offensive games of the season. And so, shout out to McCall. I texted Queen last night and I said, here's a player who just does not want to go to Portland.
Or he's improving his stock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Mikal to me has been underwhelming. So like when I hear somebody talk about feeling entitled, like I'm out there just doing whatever I want to do and I need to get back into the team concept. I guess I couldn't understand what he was saying because I'm like, you didn't look entitled to me. You look like you was sleeping. You know what I mean? So I didn't, that's why I'm saying I didn't quite get what he was saying. But listen, last night, 19 of his 30 points in that third quarter. If you look at the visual of the game, I meant to bring it. The Knicks started to turn it up. It was clear, like toward the end of that third quarter, and Mikal Bridges was doing his thing throughout the third quarter, but it turned toward like the end of the third quarter, and the Knicks never looked back. And a large part of that was his shot making. I think it was 12 or 15 or something like that, 6 of 8 or something like that from the 3-point line. But he was really assertive, really aggressive. And, I've said this before, I believe this is what the Knicks thought they were getting in Mikal Bridges. He has the experience of being a number 1 in Brooklyn for a year and a half. Okay, fine. You could say he wasn't a good number 1, but he has that experience. Now you're going from being a number 1 to a number 3. I would think that the expectation is if Brunson can't go, if he's in foul trouble, or last night when he was sick, that we have somebody who understands what that's, that role and can step up. And that's not something I've seen from Mikal Bridges this season until last night. Him and OG, and we'll talk about OG as well. I felt like, yes, this is what we need. We're losing. Brunson is not himself. Who is going to step up? And he did that last night. Listen, is this fool's gold? Because sometimes a player is who they are. And they may be able to step it up for a game or 2 or 5, but they can't live there because it's just not who they are. We're going to get a chance to see that going forward when it comes to Mikal Bridges, because remember, he was playing similar to this to start the season, and then there was a fall off. So let's see. Like, if this is Bridges going forward, if this is OG going forward, then this is a different team. But again, there's a difference between visiting a place, having a good game, having a good streak, and living here. Like, this is who I am. And if the Knicks are going to keep this team as is, they're banking on Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby living close to their ceiling, not just visiting it. So we'll see what happens as time goes on. Any place you want to go next?
Well, first of all, I love that comment. That really encapsulates what's going on here. I think especially when it comes to Anunoby, who, the guy was in his former stomping grounds. You could tell this was a game that meant a lot to him. Even in the first half, when everybody else was sticking up the joint, OG came to play, and everybody finally kind of decided, oh, we better come along with him. So I very much am with you on the vibe about Wingstop in general. And I think with Bridges, I think maybe instead of entitlement, being comfortable, like too comfortable, like with what his role was and who he was, and not really trying to push himself and go outside of the box and do some things that he's not really tasked or asked to do all the time. But, on nights like last night, he finally, when we needed it, he stepped up and he finally really, really answered the bell and answered the call. So from that standpoint, I think what you said was spot on. But kudos to Anunoby. I like it when OG plays well, and this was really a statement game for him. Also, I mean, he's his former team. You could tell the game meant a lot to him, and he cleaned it up from a turnover perspective. I don't think he turned the ball over once. He continued his hot shooting from the game before. I think he was 5 for 7 in the win over the Kings, even though he had 8 trillion turnovers. Even when he was called for, even when we had a 24-second violation, he was making the shot at the end in that game, and that just seemed to carry over. The basket was large for him on that night, and we need that. Like during the 2 and 9 stretch, part of our struggles were his struggles, right? He really failed to, his 3-point shooting really went in the toilet during that stretch, and that definitely hurt us a bunch. And last night he was terrific, but again, will the real Slim Shady please stand up, right? Who's the right guy? Which is the one you can expect? Which is the one you can count on and rely on? Obviously, if we get this level of OG and Bridges, we're stomping through everybody, and nobody's going to touch us. Period. But we also we get milk carton McCall quite a bit, right? We have stretches where OG disappears also, and so I think that therein lies the weakness of this team and the strength of this team at the same time, which is enigmatic, but also kind of what we've experienced in this 29 and 18 season, I think.
And you can say those two, their play is the ultimate swing factor in the Knicks being championship contenders. And we'll get into Karl-Anthony Towns in a little bit. But just to piggyback off of what you said about OG, in the first half, he had 14 points. No other Knick was in double figures. Hart was close with 9. And again, it could have been that he was in his old stomping grounds. It could have been that he was a disaster, with the turnovers the game before, or a little bit of both. I thought he came out ready to play, like really attacked the rim, wasn't settling. If you did get an open shot, he took it and made it. 26 points, only 3 rebounds. He hasn't been rebounding well. You're not making me look good as of late, OG. But 5 assists, 6 steals, 6. 2 blocks, and Mike Brown added he had 7 deflections. I think they keep that stat as well. 11 for 8 for 18. I thought OG Anunoby was phenomenal last night, and to your point, we're going to need him to continue to be that if this team decides to stay pat and keep the team as is. I still feel that those two are the swing factor, for us. Let's talk about Hart. I mean, not Hart. I want to talk about Towns, and we'll get to Hart as well. Again, 8 points, didn't score in double figures, 22 rebounds. I believe he had 16 in the first half. But what has become, I think it's been apparent before this, but I thought last night it was just like the stamp that he's not featured in this offense. He's just going to get what he can get when he can get it. So when we were struggling in the first first quarter, particularly, I'm like, they don't have anybody over 6'9". So I'm thinking that, okay, the Knicks are going to run some offense through Karl-Anthony Towns, get him in the box a little bit, see what he can do, because I think the player if he wasn't a rookie, he was a young player playing center. There was none of that. Nobody seemed to pass him the ball at all until Kolek got in the game. David Smith has been pointing that out pretty much every time he's in the chat. And so now I think I'm on board with trading Cat. And I don't want to trade him because I no longer believe in him, because I do. But if as a coaching staff, you're not going to make a concerted effort to use one of the most diverse offensive players to ever play the game. Now, To me, there's a difference between you using him a certain way and him not delivering. Two separate things. I'm talking about using him, not using him in a way that using him to his talents, and also in a way that would help the team. And that he's now reduced to just being a rebounder and a spacer. Like, that's basically what we can use that $50-something million somewhere else. If that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to use him for. We can make better use of that money. And if it's not, and we talked about this a lot, if it's not a scheme thing, if this is a Jalen Brunson thing, then he needs to get it together in terms of the execution. It is a wasted asset. And again, this is aside from Towns being inefficient, Towns picking up stupid fouls, Towns making boneheaded plays. All of that is still true. I'm not disputing that at all. But I'm saying, if this is what the coaching staff has decided, this is how Jalen Brunson has decided he's going to run the then we need to just move off of Cat. It's a waste. And it was so apparent in that Toronto game last night. So what is it? That's it. He's just gonna, set screens and move out of people's way and just be at the top of the key as a spacer. And listen, I get it. If he's a spacer at the top of the keys, pulling the center out, you got driving lanes, you got passing lanes. I get that. But that can't be his role at $50+ million. It just can't. So if this is what it's gonna be, trade him, move him, if you can't find a way to use him correctly. That's just kind of where I am with Cat.
That's an interesting take. I like that. I'm wondering, and maybe this is off base too. This is just off the top of my head. I didn't really think about it until you framed framed it like that, which is excellent. I'm wondering if maybe it's a little bit of a protest on his part, like a player protest. Like, he's still obviously engaged in the process of winning. I mean, he 16 first half rebounds, 22 overall, and I thought his rebound of I think it was a Landry Shamet miss where he passed the ball in back of him and got the dunk or layup. I thought that was one of the biggest plays of the game. Gorgeous pass that he made right there. But I'm wondering if it's like, okay, in a sense, like, okay, you don't think you need me on offense? Well, I'm only going to take 11 shots, But
Geoff, if you watch the game, they weren't passing it to him. There were multiple opportunities. He was asking for the ball and thought he would get the ball, and they would take the shot. They would pass it. I watched. I wanted to be real specific. Is this him passing up shots, or they were not passing him the ball? They really weren't. And to me, I felt like, well, kudos to him that he's not allowing that to, impact his energy, in his effort. But they were just not, like, he's just one of the guys. And I'm not saying that he has to dominate the touches every night. But I'm just saying, when you have someone of that skill that you're playing $50+ million to, you got to figure that out, or just move on. But I digress. Go ahead.
No, I think that's a good, and I trust your eye on the topic. I didn't pay that close attention to it. I'm seeing even more so in general lately. Do you think that was just a last night phenomenon, or do you think that that's what's been going on for the last month or so? And it's possible because his touches are down. So I don't know. I haven't really paid that much attention to it, other than an ancillary way. Like, yeah, I think Towns needs to shoot the ball more. Like, interesting. Again, he was 3 of 11 last night. Not his best shooting performance, even when he did get the ball. So, from the standpoint of, get the ball to who's hot and who's, being effective, you kind of understand it, for a one game thing. But if this is something that's systematic, as you're claiming here, which I'm not saying is wrong, then I think you may be right that it may be time to say, if you're not going to use him, why, go in a different direction. There's other ways you can utilize that cap space and free to Towns somewhere else, like send him to, I don't know, New Orleans or, somewhere where he can actually be the star. And because he can be a 1A with his offensive repertoire. And it just seems he can, it seems like in a lot of nights for us, he's second, third option, sometimes fourth option, and last night it wasn't a case of foul trouble. I don't think he committed a single foul last night. So, it's not like he got 11 shots because he only played 16 minutes. He was out on the floor. He had, and it wasn't, it wasn't a case where we didn't play the fourth quarter like it was the other night either. And so it just seems like there's a disconnect between Coach Brown and Cat, and that's problematic.
Yeah, I thought. I think it's different. He's definitely not being featured, but last night it was just because no one was taller than 6'9". And in the first quarter, I'm talking about, because listen, third quarter, if somebody has it rolling, you're not going to stop the offense to feature Cat. But I mean, in the first quarter, we didn't have it going at all. So that's when I'm saying, do you want to feature him, get him the ball more, maybe put him in the post, see what he can get. And I get it. When you put him in the post, maybe you're sacrificing, passing lanes, but he is the guy. Like, you're sacrificing passing lanes for who? But Mikal and OG to drive to he's the guy, offensively, right? So I don't know. I'm specifically throughout the game, I saw it, but I was specifically baffled in that first quarter when we couldn't get it going.
Well, now I'm really curious to see what happens against Portland and the Lakers. Like, that's something I'm going to be looking for if I get to watch the games. I'm definitely going to have my eye on that and be looking at that going forward, because that's fascinating.
Yeah. We'll see. Anywhere you want to go next?
Yeah, one thing that I don't even think we've really mentioned his name but once, but Tyler Kolek Hive, stand up, man.
Yeah.
That guy had a ball game last night after not 3 straight DNPs. You stay ready and you run the offense when, and I think he would have played the entire fourth quarter if he hadn't tweaked his ankle there. I really think that the plan was to not bring Brunson back in at all because he wasn't feeling well. And then when he tweaked his ankle there, they sat him down because they didn't know how he was going to be. But then he made that gorgeous move like in garbage time where, it was on full display. You don't make that move if your ankle's not okay. So thankfully it was just a minor tweak. And, unfortunately for Kolek, it's, he's situational, right? And you can make the argument maybe that this team needs more of his, point guarding skills with the second unit, and you could be right about that. I'm willing to listen to that for sure. But to stay ready like he did and have the ball game that he did, we were running an 8-man rotation too. Those guys were out, and it pretty much turned into a 7-man rotation. I know, 4 different players got like 6 or 7 minutes, but a lot of that was because of garbage time in the fourth quarter. But Kolek had solid minutes, 10 assists, I think, just really had the ball moving. He had 2 or 3 turnovers that were, very frustrating, but you have to live with that. You're a young player. You're going to make mistakes. And so I think that's the difficult part about Tyler, is that you have to live with the growing pains, right? If you're going to play a player like that, there are going to be times and there are going to be nights where he doesn't look, playable. And then there are going to be nights like last night where he just was within the flow. And I think he knew that he was going to get his minutes. And so he wasn't worried about getting, yanked. He kind of knew that he was going to have some responsibility, and he handled it well, and kudos to him and getting people involved and just a terrific game off the bench for him. I was really happy to see Kolek shine last night.
I mean, listen, he's situational. And when the situation arises, we need you to come in and give us positive minutes. And that's what he did, right? with young players, if they're getting consistent minutes, you're going to see that up and down. Um, but sometimes limiting the minutes, I know Dukosaurus Rex will disagree, limiting the minutes limits the ups and downs, and you can argue whether that limits the growth overall. But I thought last night he was really, really good. And but I'm still for the tight rotation. I just feel like that's what the Knicks need right now. But in situations like this, we need positive minutes, whether it's Kolek, who was phenomenal last night, whether it's Porty, who had a key offensive rebound for us, whether it's the Aurora, who still wants to come in and no matter what, get a shot up. But Deuce used to do the same thing, and look how Deuce turned out. So, maybe he's on the Deuce trajectory. Yeah. And Mike Brown, it was more. I think 6 players played 30 or more minutes. 2 players played 20. No, 6 players I think were 20 and up, 20 minutes or more. None played more than 36 minutes, and then 3 players played less than 8. 10 or 8 minutes. But I do want to give a small shout out to Yabu in his little bitty minutes that he had last night. Just 8 minutes, 4 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, making the most of the minutes he got. And those 2 baskets he did get, throwing his body around, the up and under. I said, oh, okay. I mean, I think this is what the Knicks, thought they were getting. And you saw a flash of it last night. Unfortunately, he seems to be heading out the door. But I thought we got some positive minutes from him in his 8 minutes last night.
I want back to Cat for a second. Do you think that the Knicks are frustrated with him defensively, and so when they're frustrated with his defense, they're not wanting to pass him the ball?
Yeah, that could definitely be true. It might be. I think it's more than a Mike Brown thing. I think that they just ignore him. It was more egregious last night. I'm not going to say that all the time. That's not the case all the time. Last night, that's what it seemed. And Kim Doc said they ignore Cat. Josh did it several times last night, but that's not always the case, Jeff. I'm not going to take last night's game and say this is what it's always been, but last night it just stuck out, just given how short they were.
Yeah, we definitely didn't take advantage of in the first half anyway of what would seem like our biggest mismatch on the floor. It was strange decision making, but again, Bridges and OG kind of made it a moot point. But maybe you don't dig yourself that 11-point hole to begin with if you rely on your best offensive player with Jalen subpar, and I think that he clearly was out there and not feeling well. You could just kind of tell that it wasn't his night.
Yeah, definitely wasn't his night. I just want to talk a little bit. The Knicks did well, in terms of their shooting last night. They took 11 more shots than Toronto, which is always good, gives you more opportunity. But they shot 500 overall, 36.8 from the field and 83.3 from the 3-point line. From the free throw line, though I think they only went to the line 18 times. But defensively, Toronto shot 38% overall, just 27% from the 3-point line. They made their hay with free throws. They got 29. They shot 25th. But don't look now. The Knicks' defensive rating is now 14th. Over the last 5 games, it's 1. It's first in the league. And over the last 10, the defensive rating has been 3rd in the league. However, over the last 5 and 10 games, the offense has just been 18th. And though I like that the defense has gotten better, again, first over the last 5 games, 3rd over the last 10 games, an 18th offensive rating is just not going to do it. But on the season, 13 offensive rating, 14 defensive rating. If we can keep that 3rd offensive rating and our offense even picks it up a little more, I'm definitely I would definitely be happy with that. Just thoughts on the Knicks defense. We'll talk more about it tonight. Their rising defense. And do you think it's at the expense of the offense, or do you just think the offense just isn't clicking and it'll get back to where it was?
I don't know. That's a tricky question. I think my first thought on it is that, our best defensive players are not really good offensive players, and our best offensive players are not very good defensive players. So it's kind of tricky to find a balance where you're good at both at the same time, because on the defensive heavy lineups, which we seem to be leaning into of late with Landry and Deuce getting a lot more time and Clarkson pretty much being the invisible man, you're leaning into that defense. Well, as you said, you have to sacrifice some things, right? Those aren't necessarily our most dynamic or best offensive players. So, and then if you're going to lean into the offense, that means that you've got more Cat and Brunson, but you also probably have more of a guy like Clarkson, and that's going to crater the defense, because it's impossible to hide three bad defenders, right? You can do it with one. The Knicks are showing that pretty consistently. It's difficult with two, but it's, you can do it in spurts and stretches maybe, but when we're leaning into this defensive lineup, it doesn't have as much offensive firepower, and a lot of that stems, in my opinion, from the fact that we don't have a lot of players who can beat people off the dribble, right? We have, Jalen is adept at that, but other than that, that's certainly not OG's strong suit. McCall, I'm not going to say McCall can't do it, just more so that he doesn't do it. Although I thought he had a stretch last night, like his first bucket of the game yesterday, when he kind of, got in the post and hit that little 13-foot patented fadeaway that he likes. I think he can get to that shot anytime he wants to. We just don't see it a whole lot. And again, I think part of it is inconsistency from offensive output from OG and from Bridges that causes a lot of that too. Like they're two of our best defensive players, even though they've had stretches where they've been terrible on defense. Of late they've really picked it up, but they're, you'll get some nights like last night where they're both shooting the ball really well, and you're going to get some nights when, it's Brick City, USA, I haven't looked at it too close, but just my gut feeling tells me that that's kind of where that stems from. Our best defensive units are not great offensively, and our best offensive units are not great defensively. And the other thing is, I think that Deuce McBride's three-point shooting has fallen a little bit, has slipped just a little bit lately. And when his percentages dip, the Knicks are still positive with him in the lineup. He still does other things, but when his three-point shot making isn't elite as it was, probably for, the first, 35, 40 games of the season, I think that gives a big hit to what New York does in terms of efficiency on offense.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm holding out hope for the offense, but our defense does need to be better, and I have concerns about whether our offense, if we have those guys who can process once they take away the first few options. I talked about that the other game, the other night. All right. Anything else before we
Super chat?
Yeah. Anything else before we get to the chat?
Nope.
All right. Let's get to it. Shout out to Latoria B. Appreciate you, sis. Always rocking with us. Last night, they had 8 straight stops to end the third quarter, and Cat was on the floor for all 8 of those stops. Josh and Cat were on the bench for that run. So in other words, it's not just Cat by himself. It's who he's in the game.
But here's the point, I think. The game before against Sacramento, it was Bridges and Towns who were on the bench when we had the big defensive surge and run in the Kings game, right? And so I think that the lesson that we learned from that is you can, when you just have one bad defender on the floor, whether it be Cat or whether it be Brunson, the other four can carry you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be McCall. You can have, Shamit and Deuce and some combination with Mitch or whatever the case may be. There are a lot of defensive players there, but I think that the key point there is that it's not a Cat or Brunson thing. It's a Cat and Brunson thing, which goes back to your point earlier. If these guys can't coexist and they can't see extended floor time together and be the type of team we want to be defensively, maybe it's time to find somebody else who's a better fit.
And if you're just thinking about net, if they are so dynamic off of each other that the offense is just singing when they're in there, that would offset their defense. But that just hasn't been the case. Donald Ford, greetings. Looks like we're returning to form. If so, can we still win the chip? Listen, if OG and Bridges are playing at their ceiling and we figure out what's going on with Cat, I think we can. I just don't think this is who Bridges and OG are game in and game out. And I'm not sure it's going to be fixed with Cat, because I think Mike Brown might just see his role differently than I do. And somebody in the chat said that, he runs a more guard-focused offense. So maybe that's it. Like a player like Cat just doesn't really fit into his system. So for
Sabonis's stats didn't crater under Brown, though, and Sabonis is as big man can get, and Towns is a more skilled big man than Sabonis, and that's no disrespect meant to DeMontis. He's a terrific player. So I don't know that I don't know that I necessarily buy the system argument here, because I don't think it was that way in Sacramento, and we're running the same system. So I'll have to look at it more, but I'm not sure I 100% agree with that one.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to throw him a little bell. Okay. Dwayne Dennis, great win. What's that? Come on, even with my glasses, I got to blow this up a little bit. All right. Calander 05, I hope I said that right. Love the win, showed some grit. Wingstop finally showed up at the same time. Yep. Dorcosaurus Rex. Mike Brown had an idea to force Cat into the Sabonis role before he even got here. Cat is not Sabonis and will never be. Cat being good at passing doesn't automatically make him Sabonis. Okay. Calendar 05, he's not featured in the offense, which is telling. Why trade for the man if you're not going to optimize him offensively? Kim Doc, maybe Mikal finally listened to coaching with regard to driving to the basket. He found his assertion and touch around the rim. Great layup, make it. Listen, I think what's not talked about in that third quarter, I think he had, again, 19 of 30, was just really great in that third quarter. What's not talked about is that he actually got to the foul line.
He did.
He was 2 for 2 from the free throw line. I'm like, when he went to the line, I said, he rocking now. So shout out to Bridges. I just want him to live there. He has the skill to, but it's more than that. Rodney, 135.79. Cat has turned into an old man right before our eyes. He's a big man that has no lift. His legs are weak. He has to get back in the gym and work on his lower body strength. But do you feel like, Rodney, that's any different than last year? Like, his body composition to me looks the same. I don't think he had more lift last year than this year. Let me know what you think, Rodney. What's the difference between last year and this year? Because I thought it was body composition wise and athletically, to me, still seems the same. Latoria B, appreciate you, sis. Always rock it. Agreed, but trade Brown, not Cat. You know what I was thinking, Latoya? I was saying if the Knicks trade Cat, be sure that Cat is the problem. Do not trade Cat, particularly if you don't get back a 1A and a 1B, and then next year Brown is out the door. You know what I mean? And then somebody comes in that could have utilized him. Like, just be clear if you're trading him that it's not just Brown's system, that he's just not a good fit with Brunson. And you can make that argument because last year they didn't really play off of each other that well. I just feel like the decision has to be made because you're getting someone better, because you figured they don't fit, not just because of Brown, who could be out in a year or two himself. Yeah. Great. I was thinking about that the other day. All right. Dwayne Dennis, what a effing pass by Cat to Mikal Bridges in the fourth quarter. That was really nice. Okay, let me see if I'm missing. One Shot D thinks Mike Brown was the worst coach possible for Cat, but Mike Brown was pretty happy about the roster when he got here. So like somebody mentioned, it might have been Dorcosaurus earlier, maybe once he got here and started working with him and was able to see him up front, kind of decided that he doesn't work with the system. Maybe Cat, like Geoff brought up, just him offensively, not offensively, defensively being a hot mess, maybe turned Mike Brown off to him. I don't know.
See, but that's on Mike Brown. As the head coach, it's your job to adapt to the roster that you have and to play to the talent of your players, not to say I want to run this system come hell or high water. In my opinion, the best coaches take the talent that they have and they adapt to it and squeeze the most out of the orange instead of putting him in less than favorable positions. Like if that's what's happening, that's certainly on Mike Brown, and that's something that collaboration needs to fix.
Right. One Shot D, best thing Mike Brown could do is keep playing Kolek because Kolek will make sure he's touching the ball. I did notice when Kolek was in there, he got more touches. And this is a problem too. Shout out to two Knicks chicks. Hopefully you safe and be sure to send your mom my love. I don't think Brown is utilizing Cat. He doesn't have any affinity for him. I think this kind of piggybacks off of what you just said. I hope it's not about affinity and liking and not liking. And it's more about what's best for the team, because it's possible. Listen, they're running the data. They're running the lineup data. It's possible he's saying, regardless of how much money he's making, we're better when we run the offense through our guards and wings. That's possible. I don't have that. I have lineup data, but maybe that's the conclusion he's coming to. And if that's the case, then you need to move off of Cat. Like there's just no. You can find somebody cheaper to rebound. I don't know if they're going to provide the space and have the respect Cat has. That's different.
Not sure they're going to rebound quite like Towns does either. He's he's just like second best. Well, I think he's recorded as first right now because your Joker is not have enough minutes or whatever games played to qualify. Correct. So he's the best rebounder in the league. You don't just throw somebody else in there and get that kind of production.
Randu, 1973. Kolek definitely needs to play more often, even if it's only 10 minutes a game. Okay. All righty.
So at the expense of whom, when Deuce McBride and Landry Shamet are both healthy, Kolek deserves to play over both of those guys? Because I'm not sure I agree with that.
Well, Dorcosaurus says Shaman is up and down. Let's limit his minutes. I agree. Shamit is up and down in terms of his shooting, but he brings other things as well. And he's becoming how Deuce used to be. Remember when Deuce was up and down, but he would always hit a timely shot? Chapman is still up and down shooting wise, but he's been hitting some timely shots of late. Um, yeah, yeah.
He hit the three that got us within a point last night, to your point, like in the third quarter when we were, it seemed like we were always within four. We couldn't get any closer is what Clyde said. And then he hit that massive three that cut it to one. And, 2 possessions later, we were in front because of the OG steal and dunk. So, that was a key sequence in the game. And I think it highlights your point precisely.
Nick Nation, that Kolick kid has something special about him. I hope he gets to flourish more. I think by next year, many will be surprised, especially if his handle and footwork improves. Okay. All right.
What if he flourishes in Milwaukee? Asking for a friend.
Right. Knicks versus everybody. The Giannis trade probably won't happen till the offseason. We'll talk more about that tonight. The Wingstop.
Well, if that's the case, talk more because we need more performances like that. If they bring that lunch pail and hard hat to the game every game, we will not be stopped.
Right. Oscar Contreras. I hope I got that right. The Knicks have the best defensive average over the last 6 games. Okay. Nick Nation have to respect Josh Hart for roughing it out and playing through pain. His ankle, he was limping pretty bad last night. Okay. All right. I think, let me just scroll down. See if I missed anything. Okay. I don't really. Okay. Jamrock also, always, when Brunson is off the floor, Kolick should get the lion's share of that minutes, especially when Cat is on the floor. Okay. Oh, turning a second or third team All NBA player into a bum is coaching malpractice. Get Cat easy buckets, value him while we have him. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know if this is all Mike Brown, but like, yeah, come on. Lady and the Chef, I am back in the States. We will be back on live stream. Yes. Looking forward to that, sis. Looking forward to that for sure. Nick Nation, let's pay attention to Mikal Bridges moving forward and see if he is more consistent and flowing better on offense and defense now that he is verbally saying he is more on board with the coaching. I just don't understand that. Mike Brown is who, I don't know if he wanted Mike Brown, but every time he gets an opportunity, he talks positively about Mike Brown. He came out under Mike Brown's system to start, and he was on fire.
Setting the world on fire.
That's basketball. So I'm not sure about this entitlement, not wanting to be coached thing. Maybe that's an inside thing that I guess we're not supposed to understand. Like, I didn't quite get it. All right. Okay. Cat seems to be out of shape and is carrying an injury that they don't want to disclose. Okay. Yeah, we didn't talk about Josh Hart. I thought Josh Hart was really good last night, especially in transition, less fouls and turnovers, no complaints from me. 35 minutes, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 7 of 11 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3. Yeah, I thought he was good last night.
Yeah, that's the best of Hart for sure. He's stat sheet stuffer last night. That's crazy. And it checks out the eye test and per performance, but that definitely a very Josh Hart kind of a game.
Latoria B says she's still a fan, but he turned the ball. Did he have a lot of turnovers last night? I know the game before he had 4. He might have. Let me look at it. I have it right here. Yeah, he had 2. He had 2 last night. Turnovers last
But sometimes when you're focused on that, those are the only 2 plays you'll remember. I know I get in that sometimes. He turned the ball over 800 times last night. No, he turned it over twice, and those are the only 2 plays in the whole game that you remember. You know?
Right. Cat with 0-5.
We've all got miracles, large and small.
Right. So we're on tonight. We're going to talk about, we'll talk about the Giannis trade. I don't think we've had an opportunity as a group to weigh in on that. So we'll talk about that in the midst of just what the Knicks need for the trading deadline in general, given the 4-game winning streak, how they performed last night. Should the Knicks just bet on keeping this team the same? We'll talk about that tonight as well. Any last words, Geoff?
Just always a pleasure. Last night was that second half was fun to watch. It was the most joy I've had a Knick game for a while, because we beat a really good team in their own building on the second night of a back-to-back. And, I had a old teacher who used to say, no excuses means no excuses, right? You have to go in, and whatever the circumstances are, you don't get to change them. All you can do is perform and play. And we had enough talent to get the W last night, and they went out and they seized control of the game, and they took it to a Toronto team that had won 4 straight. So kudos to them.
Yeah, number 6 defensive team in terms of net rating in the league. Not a great offensive team. Probably, I think they were 18th offensive rating coming in. So not a great offensive team, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken. People gonna be at me in the chat on the replay gang. Yeah, Toronto this morning 21 in offensive rating. So I think last night they were like 18. So not an offensive juggernaut, but really good net rating because of their defense. And I think this is the 3rd straight game the Knicks have held an opponent under 100 points. Now,
3rd of the last 4. The Sixers scored more than 100.
Okay, right. And some of it was, I think the Knicks defense had something to do with it, and some of it is that those teams just weren't either great teams or great offensive teams. But not taking anything away from the Knicks after riding through that 9 out of 11 losing streak. Anyway, appreciate everyone in the chat. Appreciate the replay gang. Appreciate the silent listeners. Tonight, 9 p.m., the collective is on. And as you know, we always try to get the chat involved. So whatever you have to say, be there tonight. And I'll definitely highlight it. And if I get an opportunity, bring it onto the screen so we can discuss it as a panel. Until next time, family. Peace.
Sister, you're one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't so.